Good afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and say a few words. Please help yourself. Stay in line for pizza and drinks. There are cookies there as well. But we are on an hour, and so each of our speakers has 10 minutes, not more. So we do need to move along. First of all, I want to welcome you to our first annual Words That Change History Day. My name is Gilchrist White, and I'm the director of our QEP. The QEP is a quality enhancement plan. It's part of our accreditation for our national accreditation. And I'm very glad that you all have come today to hear our student speakers. They will introduce themselves in just a minute. The Words That Change History Day is one of two events that we will be holding for students to participate in. And we have a committee that was formed a couple of years ago that developed the procedures for applying and the processes and the judging and rubrics and all of the other things that go along with it. And so, first of all, our speakers, they applied to speak. We had 8 applicants, and we had to choose 4 of them to speak. It was very difficult, let me tell you. They were all good. And so the speakers that we have today are our 4 finalists. I would also like to introduce the members of the Words That Change History Subcommittee. If you all are here, please stand. I know that Dr. Urbina is out today, but our chair is Dr. Gary Wilson. Gary? Roger Stallings, Rebecca Sauer, is Rebecca here yet? And Ty Cornelius and Julie Garcia. So thank you all. Thank you for your work. Again, once the speakers begin, I will ask you to please be seated while they are giving their speeches. And in between, if you want to slip out or if you need to grab another piece of pizza or a cookie, you're welcome to do so, but please try not to interrupt the speakers. It will be, I think they're already a little bit unnerved, perhaps. Also, there are sign-in sheets over here to my left. If you are going to get extra credit, please be sure you have signed in and give your instructor's name as well. If more than one instructor is giving you extra credit, put all their names down. And I will be emailing those instructors this afternoon or tomorrow. Also, please silence all cell phones. And let me introduce our judges. First of all, we have Dr. Steve Sewell, Roger Stallings, and finally, Dalel Serda. Thank you all for serving today. You have also been handed an evaluation and a pencil, I hope. At the end of the speeches, if you all would please complete the evaluation and leave it down here on the table, I would be very grateful to you for doing that. And now we will begin. Please hold your applause until all 4 speakers have presented. The first speaker is Samantha Verdict, and I will let her tell you a little bit about her speech, and then each one will then follow. So, Samantha.
Alrighty. Sorry, I'm tall. Okay, first off, I'd like to thank you all for coming out. Not just for supporting me, but supporting all these wonderful ladies. I think it's awesome that it's all girls in this competition. My name is Samantha Verdict, and had I had known that they would have chosen the order of the speeches based on chronological order, I probably would have picked a more recent one. But anyway, I chose the Golden Speech by Queen Elizabeth I, and I do want to remind you all that the speech was given in 1601. So that the tongue it was written in may seem a little strange to your ears, but I'd ask to please remember and respect the beauty of the language it was given in. When Queen Elizabeth gave this speech, everyone in the room was under the impression that they would be discussing pricing concerns based off their economy at the time. But she turned the speech, and instead, she addressed her love and her respect to her subjects. She was saying goodbye. Her final speech, the Golden Speech, was her last speech to her parliament. Her final words changed history. Her goodbye marked the end of an era, the Golden Era. Mr. Speaker, we have heard your declaration and perceive your care of our estate. By falling into the consideration of a grateful acknowledgement of such benefits as you have received, and that your coming is to present thanks unto us, which I accept with no less joy than your loves can have desire to offer such a present. I do assure you, there is no prince that loveth his subjects better, or whose love can countervail our love. There is no jewel, be it of never so rich a price, which I set before this jewel, I mean your love. For I do more esteem of it than any treasure or riches, for that we know how to prize, but love and thanks I count invaluable. And, though God hath raised me high, yet this I count the glory of my crown, that I have reigned with your loves. This makes me that I do not so much rejoice that God hath made me to be a queen, but instead a queen over so thankful a people. Therefore, I have cause to wish nothing more than to content the subjects, and that is a duty which I owe. Neither do I desire to live longer days than that I may see your prosperity, and that is my only desire. And as I am that person that still yet under God hath delivered you, so I trust by the almighty power of God that I still shall be his instrument to preserve you from the envy, peril, shame, dishonor, tyranny, and oppression, partly by the means of your intended helps, which we take very acceptably because it manifests the largeness of your loves and the loyalty to your sovereign. Of myself, I must say this. I was never any greedy, scraping grasper, nor straight, fast-holding prince, nor yet a waster. My heart was never set on worldly goods, but only for my subjects' goods. What you do bestow upon me, I will not hoard it up, but simply receive it to bestow on you again. Yea, my own proprieties I count yours, and to be expended for your good, and your eyes shall see the bestowing of all for your good. Therefore, I beseech you, Mr. Speaker, such thanks as you imagine my heart yieldeth, but my tongue cannot express. Mr. Speaker, you give me thanks, but I doubt me that I have more cause to thank you all than you do me. And I charge you to thank them of the lower house from me, for had I not received a knowledge from you, I might have fallen into the lapse of an error, but only for the lack of true information. Since I was a queen, yet did I never put my pen unto any grant, but that, upon pretext and semblance, made unto me, it was both good and beneficial to the subject in general, though a private profit to some of my ancient servants, who had deserved well at my hands, but the contrary being found by experience. I am exceedingly beholding to such subjects as would move the same at the first, and I am not so simple to suppose that there is some of the lower house to whom these grievances never touched, and for them I think they spoke out of zeal for their countries, and not out of spleen or malevolent affection. And I take it exceedingly gratefully from them, because it gives us to know that no interest or respects had moved them, other than the minds they bear to suffer no diminution of our honor and our subjects' loves unto us. The zeal of which affection, tending to ease my people and knit their hearts unto me, I embrace with a princely care, for I esteem my people's love more than which I desire not to merit. Shall they think to escape unpunished, those that have thus oppressed you, and been respectless of their duty and regardless of our honor? No, Mr. Speaker, I assure you. Were it not more for conscience sake than for any glory or increase of love that I desire, these errors and vexations done by these varlets and lewd persons, not worthy the name of subjects, should not escape without condign punishment. But I perceive they dealt with me like physicians, who, when administering a drug, make it more acceptable by giving it a good aromatical savor, or, when they give pills, do gild them all over. I have ever used to set the last judgment day before my eyes as so to rule, as I shall be judged to answer before a higher judge, to whose judgment seat I do appeal. There was never a thought that was cherished in my heart that tended not to my people's goods. And now if my kingly bounty had been abused, or the grants turned to the hurt of my people, contrary to my will and meaning, or if any in authority under me have neglected or perverted what I have committed to them, I hope God will not lay their culps and offenses to my charge. I know the title of a king is a glorious title, but assure yourself that the shining glory of princely authority hath not so dazzled the eyes of our understanding, and that we well know and remember that we are also to yield an account of our actions before the great judge. To be a king and wear a crown is a thing more glorious to those that see it than it is pleasing to them that bear it. Of myself, I was never so much enticed with the glorious name of a king or royal authority of a queen as delighted that God had made me his instrument to maintain his truth and glory and to defend this kingdom, as I said, from peril, envy, dishonor, shame, tyranny, and oppression. There will never a queen sit in my seat with more zeal for my country, care for my subjects, and that sooner with willingness will venture her life for your good and safety than myself. For it is not my desire to live nor reign longer than that my life and reign shall be for your good. And though you have had and may have many princes more mighty in wife sitting in this state, yet you have never had or shall have any that will be more caring and loving. Shall I ascribe anything to myself and my sexly weakness? I were not worthy to live then, and of all most unworthy of the great mercies I have received from God, who hath ever yet given me a heart which never yet feared foreign or home enemy. I speak it to give God the praise, as a testimony before you all, and not to attribute anything to myself. For I, O Lord, what am I, whom practices and perils past should not fear? Or what can I do that I should speak for any glory? God forbid. This, Mr. Speaker, I pray you deliver to the House, to whom heartily commend me. And I commit you all to your best fortunes and further counsels. And I pray you, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Comptroller, and you of my council, that before these gentlemen depart into their countries, you bring them all to kiss my hand. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lydia Bikova, and I'm gonna give the speech that was given by Susan B. Anthony after her arrest in 1872 for illegal voting on the presidential election. In that time, the women had few legal rights in the United States, and one of the rights that they didn't have was the voting. She was arrested and fined $100, but she refused to pay. Friends and fellow citizens, I stand before you tonight under indictment for having voted of the last presidential election without having a lawful right to vote. It shall be my duty this evening to prove to you that in thus voting, I not only committed no crime, but simply I exercised my citizens' right, guaranteed to me and all United States citizens by the national Constitution, beyond the power of any state to deny. The preamble of the Federal Constitution says, "We, the people of United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." It was we, the people, not we, the white male citizens, nor we, the male citizens, but we, the whole people, women as well as men. And it was not to give we formed the union, not to give the blessings of liberty, but to secure them, and not to half of our posterity and to the half of our nation, but to the whole people, women as well as men. And it's a downright mockery to talk to women about their enjoyment of blessings of liberty, while they're denied the only use of means of securing them provided by this democratic Republican government, the ballot. For any state to make sex a qualification that must ever result in this disfranchisement of one entire half of the people is to pass a bill of attainder or an ex post facto law, and is therefore a violation of the supreme law of the land. To them, by it, the blessings of liberty will be withheld from women forever and to their female posterity. To them, this is not a democracy. To them, this is not a republic. It's an odious aristocracy. It's a hateful oligarchy of sex, the most hateful oligarchy ever established on the face of the globe. It's an oligarchy of wealth, where the rich governs the poor. It's an oligarchy of learning, where the educated governs the ignorant. Even it's an oligarchy of race, where the Saxon ruled the African. Might be endured, but this oligarchy of sex, where every father, every brothers, husband, sons are the oligarchs over their mother, sisters, wife, and daughters into every household, which ordains all men sovereigns, all women subjects, brings dissension, discord, and rebellion into every home of our nation. Webster, Worcester, and Bouvier, they all defined a citizen to be a person in the United States, entitled to vote and hold an office. Then the only question left to be settled is, are women persons? And I hardly believe any of our opponents will have the hardihood to say they're not. So, being a person, women are citizens. And no state has a right to make any law or enforce any old law that will abridge their privileges or immunities. Hence, every discrimination against women in the constitutions and laws of the several states today is null and void, precisely as is everyone against Negroes. Thank you.
My name is Kayla Smith, and I'm doing a speech written by Helen Keller. I'm going to school to be a special education teacher, and as such, I only found it fitting for me to do a speech by someone who was born with special needs. I'm sure the majority of you should know by now that she was born blind and deaf, and back then she would have been labeled dumb. Nowadays, thanks to her nanny, who practically raised her and taught her how to speak, we know that people who are blind and deaf can have an incredible intelligence once you know how to communicate with them properly. She gave Strike Against War at Carnegie Hall in New York City on January 5th, 1916, under the auspices of the Women's Peace Party and Labor Forum. This was roughly 1 year before the United States officially joined World War I. The future of the world rests in the hands of America, and the future of America rests in the hands of the 80 million working men, women, and their children. We're facing a grave crisis in our national life. The few who profit from the labor of the masses want to organize the workers into an army to protect the interest of the capitalists. You are urged to add to your already heavy burdens an even larger army and many additional warships. Now, it is in your power to refuse to carry the artillery and the dreadnoughts, and to shake off some of the burdens too, such as limos, yachts, and country estates. You do not need to make a great noise. With the silence and dignity of creators, you can end wars and the system of selfishness and exploitation that causes wars. All you need to do to bring about this stupendous revolution is to straighten up and fold your arms. We are not preparing to defend our country. Even if we were as helpless as Congressman Gardner says we are, we have no enemies foolhardy enough to invade the United States. The talk about attack from Germany and Japan is quite absurd. Germany has its hands full and will be busy with its own affairs for some generations to come after the European war is over. Until recently, there were uses in the United States for the money gained from and taken from the workers. But American exploitation, the American labor is exploited almost to the limit now, and our national resources have all been appropriated. But still, the profits keep piling up new capital. Our flourishing industry and implements of murder is filling the vaults of New York's banks with gold, and a dollar that is not being used to make a slave of some human being is not fulfilling its purpose in the capitalistic scheme. That dollar must be invested in South America, Mexico, China, or the Philippines. Every modern war has its roots in exploitation. The Civil War was fought to decide whether the slaveholders of the South or the capitalists of the North should exploit the West. The Spanish-American War was decided that the British should exploit the diamond mines. The Russo-Japanese War decided that Japan should get to exploit Korea. And the present war is to decide who shall exploit the Balkans, Turkey, Persia, Egypt, China, and Africa. And we are currently whetting our sword to scare the victors into sharing the spoils with us. Now, the workers are not interested in the spoils. They won't get any of them anyway. The preparedness propagandists have still another objective, and a very important one at that. They want to give the people something to think about besides their unhappy condition. They know that the cost of life is high and that wages are low and that employment is uncertain. No matter how hard and incessantly the people work, they cannot afford the comforts of life. Many of them cannot afford the necessities. All the machinery of the system has been set in motion, and the complaint and din of the protest from the workers is heard above the complaint and din of the protest from the workers is heard the voice of authority. Friends, it says, fellow workmen and patriots, your country is in danger. There are foes on all sides of us. There is nothing between us and our enemies except the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans. Will you murmur about low wages and when your country, your very liberties are in jeopardy? Quit your whining. Get busy and prepare to defend your firesides and your flag. Get a navy, get an army, and be ready to meet the invaders like the loyal-hearted freemen that you are. But will the workers be fooled again, and will they walk into this same trap? I'm afraid that they will. The people have always been amenable to this sort of oratory. The workers know they have no enemies except for their masters, and they know that their citizenship papers are no warrant for the safety of themselves, their wives, or their children. They know that honest sweat, persistent toil, and years of struggle bring them nothing worth holding on to or worth fighting for. And yet deep down in their foolish hearts, they believe that they have a country. They have the blind vanity of slaves. The clever ones up in high places know how childish and silly the workers are. They know that if the government dresses them up in khaki, gives them a rifle, and starts them off with a brass band and waving banners, they will go forth to fight valiantly for their own enemies. They are taught that brave men die for their country. What a price to pay for an abstraction, the lives of millions of young men, others crippled and blinded for life, an existence made hideous for still millions more human beings, the achievement and inheritance of generations swept away in a moment, and nobody better off for it. The terrible sacrifice would be comprehensible if the thing you die for and call a country fed, clothed, housed, and warmed you, educated and cherished your children? I think that the workers are the most unselfish of the children of men. They toil and live and die for other people's countries, other people's sentiments, other people's liberties, and other people's happiness. The workers have no liberties of their own. They are not free when they are compelled to work 8, 10, or 12 hours a day. They are not free when they are ill paid for their exhausting toil, or when their children must labor in mines, mills, factories, or starve, or when their wives are driven by poverty into lives of shame. They are not free when they are clubbed and imprisoned because they go on strike for a raise of wages, for the elemental justice that is their right as human beings. We are not free unless the men who frame and execute laws represent the interest of the lives of the people and no other interests. The ballot does not make a free man out of a wage slave. There has never existed a truly free and democratic nation in the world. From time immemorial, men have followed with blind loyalty the strong men who had the power of money and of armies. Even while battlefields were piled high with their own dead, they have tilled the lands of the rulers and have been robbed of the fruits of their labor. They have built palaces and pyramids, temples and cathedrals that held no real shrine of liberty. As civilizations have grown more complex, the workers have gotten more and more enslaved. Until today, they are little more than parts of the machines that they operate. And daily, they face the dangers of railroads, bridges, skyscrapers, freight trains, stockholds, stockyards, lumber rafts, and mines. Painting and training at the docks, on the railroad, and underground on the seas, they move the traffic and pass from land to land the precious commodities that make it possible for us to live. And what is their reward? A scanty wage, often poverty, rents, taxes, tributes, and war indemnities. It is your duty to insist upon them still more radical measures. It is your business to see that no child is employed in an industrial establishment or mine or store, and that no worker is needlessly exposed to accident or disease. It is your business to make them give you clean cities free from smoke, dirt, and congestion. It is your business to make them pay you a living wage. It is your business to see this kind of preparedness is carried into every department of the nation until everyone has a chance to be well-born, well-nourished, rightly educated, intelligent, and serviceable to the country at all times. Strike against all ordinances and laws and institutions that continue the slaughter of peace and the butcheries of war. Strike against war, for without you, no battles can be fought. Strike against manufacturing shrapnel and gas bombs and other tools of murder. Strike against preparedness that means death and misery to millions of human beings. Be not the dumb, obedient slaves in an army of destruction. Instead, be heroes in an army of construction. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Well, good afternoon, I should say. I want to thank everyone for coming out and also congratulate Samantha, Lydia, and Kayla for presenting their speeches. My speech is a speech that was given by Malcolm X at the Northern Negro Grassroots Leadership Conference in November 10, 1963. This speech speaks about the difference between the Black Revolution and the Negro Revolution, and also it speaks about Black nationalism. In the few moments that we have left, we just want to have an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everyone here can easily understand. All of the speakers have agreed that America has a very serious problem. Not only does America have a very serious problem, but our people have a very serious problem. America's problem is us. We're her problem. And the only reason she has a problem is she doesn't want us here. And every time you look at yourself, be you black, brown, red, or yellow, a so-called Negro, you represent a person that poses such a problem for America because you are not wanted. Once you face this as a fact, then you can start plotting a course that will make you appear intelligent instead of unintelligent. What you and I need to do is learn to forget our differences. When we come together, we don't come together as Methodists or Baptists. We come together as people. We don't come together as Democrats or Republicans. You don't catch hell because you're a Democrat, and you don't catch hell because you're a Republican. You don't catch hell because you're a Baptist or a Methodist. You don't catch hell because you're a Mason or an Elk. You don't catch hell because you're an American, because if you were an American, you wouldn't catch no hell. You catch hell because you're a black man. You catch hell, all of us catch hell for the same reason. So we are all black people, so-called Negroes, second-class citizens, ex-slaves. You are nothing but an ex-slave. You don't like to be told that, but what else are you? You are ex-slaves. You didn't come here on the Mayflower. You came here in a slave ship, on chains, like a horse, or a cow, or a chicken. And you were brought here by the people who came here on the Mayflower. You were brought here by the so-called pilgrims, the founding fathers. They brought you here. I would like to make a few comments concerning the difference between the Black Revolution and the Negro Revolution. There's a difference. Are they both the same? And if not, what is the difference? First, what is a revolution? Sometimes I'm inclined to believe that our people are using this word revolution without careful consideration what this word's historic characteristics are. When you study the nature of a revolution, the historic nature of a revolution, that is, the motive of a revolution, the objective of a revolution, the result of a revolution, and the methods used in a revolution, you may change words. You may change your mind. You may devise another program. You may change your goal. Look at the American Revolution in 1776. That American Revolution was for what? For land. Why did they want land? For independence. How was it carried out? Bloodshed. Number one, it was based on land, the basis of all independence. And the only way they could get it was bloodshed. The French Revolution, what was it based on? Land. The landless against the landlord. How did they get it? Bloodshed. Was no love lost? Was no compromise, no negotiation? I'm telling you, you don't know what a revolution is. If you did, you wouldn't use that word. Because when you find out what it is, you'll get out of the way. You'll devise another program. You'll get back in the alley. The Russian Revolution, what was it based on? Land. How did they bring it out? Bloodshed. You haven't got a revolution that doesn't involve bloodshed, and you're afraid to bleed. I said you're afraid to bleed. As long as the white man sent you to Korea, you bled. He sent you to Germany, you bled. He sent you to the South Pacific to fight the Japanese, you bled. You bleed for white people. You bleed for them. But when it comes down to see your own churches being bombed and your little black girls being murdered, you haven't got no blood. You bleed when the white man says bleed. You bite when the white man says bite, and you bark when the white man says bark. I hate to say this about us, but it's true. How are you going to be nonviolent in Mississippi as violent as you were in Korea? How can you justify being nonviolent in Mississippi and Alabama when your churches are being bombed and your little girls are being murdered, and at the same time you're going to go be violent with Hitler and Tojo and someone else that you don't even know? So I cite these various revolutions, brothers and sisters, to show you haven't got a peaceful revolution. You don't have a turn the other cheek revolution. There's no such thing as a nonviolent revolution. The only kind of revolution that is nonviolent is the Negro revolution. The only revolution based on loving your enemy is the Negro revolution. The only revolution in which the goal is a desegregated lunch counter, desegregated theater, desegregated park, and a desegregated public toilet so you can sit down next to white folks on the toilet. That's no revolution. Revolution is based on land. Land is the basis of all independence. Land is the basis of freedom, justice, and equality. The white man knows what a revolution is. He knows that the Black Revolution is worldwide in nature and in scope. The revolution is sweeping Asia, is sweeping Africa, is rearing its head in Latin America. The Cuban Revolution, that's a revolution. They overturned the system. Revolution is in Asia. Revolution is in Africa. And the white man is screaming because he sees revolution in Latin America. How do you think he will react when you learn what a revolution is? You don't know what a revolution is. If you did, you wouldn't use that word. Revolution is bloody. Revolution is hostile. Revolution overturns and destroys everything that gets in its way. And you, sitting around here like a knot on the wall saying, I'm gonna love these folks no matter how much they hate me. No, you need a revolution. Who ever heard of a revolution where they lock arms, as Reverend Klieg was pointing out, beautifully singing, "We shall overcome"? Just tell me. You don't do that in a revolution. You don't do any singing. You're too busy swinging. It's based on land. A revolutionary wants land so he can set up his own nation, an independent nation. These Negroes aren't asking for a nation. They're trying to crawl back on the plantation. Thank you.
Thank you to our wonderful speakers. Let me remind you that there is, I think, some food left and cookies if anybody would still like some. We're waiting on the judges to compile the results, and we'll announce the winners. You all can now breathe. Are you holding it back? Just a final few words. When you, as you leave, if you'll leave the evaluation forms on the table, and if you need to sign in, if you came in late, please sign in. And if you're getting extra credit and you're a student, please leave put your instructor's name down. Yes. 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 I'm planning to announce the winners in the order before we leave. So judges, hurry. All right, we have our prize winners. We're going to start with fourth place. Fourth place goes to Samantha Verdict. Oh, fourth prize is $25 gift card. Visa, it's a Visa all-purpose card. Third, I can't talk. You'd think. Third place is 50. Second place, I can't do this backwards. Second place is 75, and the first prize is $100. So, yeah, okay. Right? I did that right? Okay, third place is Lydia Bikova. Lydia. Second place, Kayla Smith. Thank you so much. Congratulations. And our winner, Chelsea Murray. Thank you all again to our judges. Thank you all for coming. And this will be an annual event, and I appreciate your attendance very much. And thanks to our speakers. They were all wonderful.